So let's go ahead and just jump right into these things here on bullying, right? So, hey, we've been talking about some tough topics for, I think this is our 4th week or so. Maybe it's 5th. I don't know if I skipped a week, I may have. But whatever the case, we've been talking about different things. One of them was about divorce. One of them was about like dealing with death and tragedy. And this last one here is a little bit more specific. That's dealing with bullying, right? So we had that little quiz game there. So nobody else got 10 except for Elena, which.
Oh no.
Oh, you did? Oh, you guys did. Oh. Oh.
I feel that's special.
Oh, wow. So we have a tie for first. So we know our bullies around here. So there you go. So anyways, so what's often noted is in a lot of these characters here, whether it's, Buzz McAllister or whether one of these other people, sometimes they get their comeuppance, as people say. A lot of times there's sort of a joke that's played on them. They're kind of funny. Otherwise, they really wouldn't be interesting or whatever, like, in the character development of those stories. But really, if you think about it, bullying isn't really a laughing matter. There's a pretty specific difference between somebody who is having a fun time, who's kidding, right, and somebody who is actually bullying. And usually, who is typically doing one or the other. Typically, somebody who is kidding around with you are people that you already love and trust, and people who wouldn't feel offended if you did the same thing to them, right? You know what I'm saying? And then bullying is people doing it with a malicious intent, and that's actually the same kind of like legal definition for certain things as well. But the idea is that bullying is something that people do intentionally, and it's usually out of this word intimidation. That's really what bullying is kind of about. And you're probably thinking, wait a second, what does the Bible have to say about bullying? This is sort of like a topic that we deal with today, but is the Bible even relevant for this? And actually, yeah, indeed so. Let me try this other spot here from my clicker. But yeah, so those are some famous bullies there. And a lot of times in TV shows and whatnot, they're sort of laughed at, and they usually don't win in the end. And for some reason, my thingy won't work here. Let me try this again. Is that going to work? No, man, my computer really needs to get with it here. Welcome to the next century. There we go. Okay, and it's not working on here now. I don't know what the deal is. Yeah, let me put this back up here. It's unplug and plug thing. Well, the first line is the question. The title of it is what can you do? There we go. Is that going to work? All right, finally. All righty. What can you do when it comes to somebody who is a bully? So that's our question here, really. So a bully is someone who's seeking to harm, intimidate, or coerce. And they usually do this to somebody who they perceive as vulnerable. Usually bullies pick on somebody that is more easy to work with. But if they're intimidated, then they typically back off. That's usually how it works. And that's the reality of these things usually. There's a phrasing that you'll hear sometime today here from that is, if you see something, then you say something, or if you see something, then try to do something. And we'll look at some pretty relevant ways of how that plays out. You might also be familiar with cyberbullying. This is like a really popular thing that's happened in recent years. You couldn't really cyberbully in 1982. Maybe, I don't know. Over, I guess, yeah. Yeah, but
Send a note by pigeon.
Yes, a note by pigeon. That was the old way of tweeting.
See, you could have heard that joke.
That was pretty funny. So, anyways, cyberbullying is the use of electronic communication to bully a person, typically by sending messages of intimidating or threatening nature. So again, it's intimidating. That's what a bully does. A bully tries to intimidate. And some of you have, I'm sure all of us have seen people bully somebody else. Maybe you've been bullied yourself, and obviously that's no fun. Maybe you've even been a bully, which is also not a great feeling to consider, but at least to a certain degree. And so we're going to look at the biblical approach to how to deal with bullies, whether it's trying to be shaped into more like Christ and to not be a bully, or maybe it is to help others who have been bullied, or maybe how to deal with a bully one-on-one. And there's some really great biblical principles here and some verses to look at. So how are you going to handle bullies in your life? Do you have like a game plan about bullies? And if it's just, I'm just going to use both of my fists, I'm just going to recommend that might not be the most biblical and best approach. There's only so far that can get you in life. Because if your boss is a bully and you punch him in the nose, you're fired and possibly faced with a lawsuit. All right. I'm just saying you can't deal with bullies like that forever and ever and ever and never have any kind of legal or financial repercussions. When you're a teenager, there's less like stringencies on that, but still, it's not even a biblical approach, I would say. So let's try to look at a biblical approach. So, does the Bible have anything to say about bullying or even like cyberbullying? Like, how can we deal with these kind of things? And then also, does God care about people who are bullied? That's a really important question because he does. And then we'll see a passage on that. That's a really powerful one. And so, by the way, does bullying end after high school? This is the one thing that's kind of strange. So bullying changes after high school, but people are still bullies when they're adults. What I found too is that people who are adult bullies are no different than teenage bullies. The ones that I've dealt with teaching, what I found is their same exact sort of like behaviors and like reasons, it seems, why they are bullying, they just don't ever change. The exact same reason. And it's always about intimidating. It's always about power. It's always about selfishness. It's always about all those things. And if people never change, if they never realize that they're bullies, they probably won't ever change. There's 75-year-old bullies out there, which is sad. And there are also 15-year-old bullies. Yeah. And so let's look at what the Bible has to say about bullies, because this is something that you'll deal with throughout your life, unfortunately. A lot of times it happens at school right now. And unfortunately, I was just talking with a parent yesterday at Upward. She had a child that had been where I taught, and she had a son there that was there for just 1 year, but had a really bad bullying issue. And so he's not there anymore because bullying happens, unfortunately. And even if you try to, as an adult, try to curb that, there's only so much you can do, because people will try to bully in secret a lot of times. They're not usually always open about it. And so it's really hard to curb that in a public manner or in a private way as well. So let's look at bullies in the Bible, right? That's kind of an interesting one. Bullies in the Bible. So we have here in chapter 10 of Luke, I'm going to jump open to Luke chapter 10, and we'll look at some things here in a moment. Luke 10, and I never really thought about that until our curriculum that we're using here for these last few weeks mentioned to think about the parable of the Good Samaritan in context of a bully. I'm like, really? But there's a lot of really great principles about dealing with people who are aggressive, people who are intimidating, and how Scripture encourages us to live in light of that. But first of all, let's do a quick excursus, right? A quick background in the Bible. Who was the first bully? Yes. Elena's very good at these things. So you have in Genesis 3, you have the serpent's lies. The serpent was basically bullying Eve in a sense, right? Because he was intimidating Eve and Adam as well about the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's basically a bullying nature. He was intimidating them, basically saying that has God really said this? He didn't even physically touch her, but you can still be a bully if you are intimidating to people. Throughout the Old Testament, you have like Cain and Abel. Cain literally killed Abel. So that's, unfortunately, there was a lot of violence and bullying sometimes. Joseph himself was a victim from his own bullying brothers. And then we see how God eventually turned good from that, despite there being evil intentions. Pharaoh and the king of Egypt had killed all these baby boys, right? And then Moses gets on the scene here. Goliath and King David, right? Goliath was intimidating David, and mocking the Israelites. Even King Saul himself was sort of a bully to David. Haman and that story in Esther, right? Basically, Haman was plotting to destroy all the Jews and trying to find conniving ways to deal with them. There were, the story of these young guys who are basically referring to Elisha as like a bald guy. They're like mocking him and making fun of him. And then these bears come and like kill all these teenage guys. That's in the Bible, in case you didn't know.
Those teenagers that die in the Bible.
Yes. They're young boys, young men in 2 Kings chapter 2. You can read it later. But these guys were basically like, why don't you go up there, bald man? Like they were making fun of him. And then Elisha was like rebuking them. And then these bears come and maul them to death. I'm not joking. It's like it was a frightening thing, but it happened. So just be aware of that. There's a shirt that I've seen. It has 2 Kings 2, 23 to 24 on it, and it says respect your elders. It's a picture of a bear. There you go. So and then in the New Testament, right, there's more bullying going on right there. King Herod with all the babies that he killed in Matthew 2 when he was trying to eliminate Jesus. Herodias found a way to get John the Baptist beheaded. You have, of course, Jesus himself was victimized by, if you will, bullies, people who were intimidating them, the followers of Christ and himself. Saul, or Paul of Tarsus, right, he himself was responsible for the deaths of a lot of Christians. That's strong bullying, violent activity. So there's a lot of different people there. There's a lot more too that you could go into. William. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's plenty in history too, whether it's Socrates being pushed or bullied by the people there because he was polluting the youth. But anyways, yeah. Anyways, then Jesus himself, though, guys, tells a story in Luke chapter 10. And it's a pretty long story, but it's a really good story. So how many of y'all have a Bible with you right now that I have ready to roll? Luke 10. Luke 10, we're going to do a little bit of reading around here. Luke 10, 25 to 37. We're going to read the whole thing. So get your Bible out here, Luke 10, 25 to 37. It's a great story. I love this story. It's the parable of the Good Samaritan, as it's often referred to. And we often, like, it loses its sort of, its incredibleness if we just hear that phrasing all the time. And it just, we forget the context and everything behind it all. So Luke 10, 25 to 37. So who would like to read 25 and 26? All right, Micah. And then 27, 28, Bryson, 29 and 30.
25 and 26.
Yeah. And we'll catch up from the rest of there. Why don't you go ahead on those first couple guys?
And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and said, saying, Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said unto him, what is written in the law? How readest thou?
Okay.
Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy strength. And he said, thou hast answered right. Thou shalt live.
And who is my name? And Jesus answered,
You want to go read the next one, Gabby? Do you mind? 31 and 2.
the priest happened to be going down the same road when he saw the man who passed by. So too a Levite saw him pass.
And do you want to read the next one, Elena, if you don't mind?
The next one.
Chew rather, yeah. Mhm.
But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and he saw him. He took pity on him. He went to him,
Good morning. Welcome.
pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to
You can find a seat wherever you like here. Mhm. What was your name? Abby. Oh, come on in. All righty. So we ended up with 32. Is that right? Okay, 33 and 34. You want to read 33, 34 there, Mr. William? Hold on. Oh, wait, what? You did not?
Yeah, I read 34.
Oh, sorry, 35 and 36, if you don't mind. All right. Go right ahead. Yeah.
And he said, he that showed mercy on me, said Jesus unto him, go and do thou likewise.
All right. So that's a big story of what they call the Good Samaritan. And we're talking about this topic here about bullies in the Bible. I'm going to go ahead and get this to you out of here. Here to start notes. You're welcome to go through it, but I can help to you. And so we have a bunch of things that we've just already seen. We have that example too there about a guy who was greatly injured, and there were some people who had an opportunity to help this person who was, if you want to call it, violently bullied. They didn't do anything, and then here's this guy who's a Samaritan who at the time was not seen as a very likable person just because of their ethnic controversies. He's the one that actually takes care of the one who was bullied, which is a surprise to a lot of people. And then Jesus asked, so who's my neighbor? Or the question was answered of who is my neighbor, and the thought there was pretty much everybody. The person who actually is doing God's will, certainly. And so as you look through those things there, there's that phrase, if you see something, do something, or if you see something, say something. We'll look into some biblical teachings then here about bullying, and there's a lot of different things to cover here. But the first question is, how does God feel about bullying? How does he feel about that? It's in Proverbs. I'm going to jump over there. How does God feel about bullying? What are his emotions and such towards that? So I'm jumping over to Proverbs chapter 6. Let's take a look there. Proverbs chapter 6, and there are several verses here again. I'll just kind of read these here. 6 verse 16 to 19 says, these 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him: a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift in running to evil, and a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord among brethren. So among the brothers, right? So discord, I know. Anyways, what do you think it means? Yeah, divisions. Yeah. So how does God feel about bullying based on those kind of things right there?
Don't like it.
You don't like it. What badly about it? Is that what you said? Yeah, he doesn't like that at all.
He doesn't like having people.
Yeah. And so we're going to ask this question: how is a bully's action seen in each of these verses here? We're going to go one by one to these different things. A proud look. How does a bully show a proud look? What do you think? Yeah, Elena. Mhm.
I think being like pride goes like two ways. The first one would be like better than everyone else.
Yeah.
But there's also a certain bullying where like I am less than everybody else, and just being so are actually more proud. And I think those are the worst.
Yeah. And did you have anything to add to that? Or was that kind of, yeah. And again, the reason why I think they express pride is because they want to try to show intimidation.
It's like bullies in the class of non-adults are like, they use different tactics and, not like either one brings their home life to school or one doesn't bring their home life to school.
Interesting. Yeah. I think a lot of things stem from pride too, whether it's bullying or maybe it's just that you're very pompous and just like you love yourself, whatever the case might be. There's all kinds of different ways that pride shows itself. A lot of times people, yeah, William.
Actually, a lot of
Yeah. There are a lot of problems oftentimes there. There's even things like insecurities, right? A lot of people don't think about that because you're prideful, but a lot of people who are bullies are actually very insecure about themselves because they actually try to take some advantage of somebody who's weaker than them. What's that? Yeah, which is an insecurity. It's saying that you don't feel secure in God, so therefore you're going to tear down God's image of somebody else. And that's what I think a proud look can sometimes do. There's another word here. Here's the definition: exaggerated view of one's own importance. They have a love for oneself. And what that can often do then, as we were talking about, is it can tear down other people intentionally. How about a lying tongue? That might not be really seen as a bullying thing, but it can be. And I'm going to go into that. How would you say is a lying tongue linked to bullying?
But a lot of people will tell, say things that aren't true to that person to destroy their image.
Yeah.
Or they like say stuff that they haven't done, but they say they did it. Just like,
Oh, yeah.
so like that, like I went on a road. Wow, this is like kind of like
Yeah.
calm to what it is. Like, I went on a road coaster 37,000 times, or like something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I went on the most dangerous roller coaster about 5 times.
Yeah. Or they thinking that they did, trying to get others to believe that they did something really powerful and dominating, but in reality, they went on the teacups.
90%. That's like a lot of like not like bullying, but like more like just high schoolers in general.
Yeah, I can see that there. So a lot of times people try to tear down the integrity of other people too. What do you think?
Yeah, and I saw one of the American girls. They said, like one of the girls.
Mhm.
So, to her house, and they said staying home. The boys were.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one way to look at that. Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit more about being somebody who can stand against bullies in a very godly way. Hands that shed innocent blood. Now, this is a reality that sometimes bullies can lead to violence. A lot of times it doesn't. Sometimes it's like, it's not like deadly violence, but it can be somebody who shoves you against the locker. It can be somebody who steals from you. It can be somebody who there are really though there are cases though of physical abuse and other kinds of abuse as well, sexual abuse or whatever, that some bullies try to take advantage of other people, and those are some things that happen. Those are hands that shed innocent blood, and those are some things that God hates, and so he does not feel very happy towards bullying. A heart that devises wicked plans. Now that's, how is that related to bullying? That's kind of, what do you think? Mhm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times bullies they plan things out. They're not dumb. They're not unintelligent. They're using their. In fact, what I actually have noticed is that bullies are often naturally smart people. I've just noticed that, but they really waste their intelligence on really foolish things. That's what I've noticed. And it's not always the case, but I've just noticed that about a lot of bullies.
Failing every single
Yeah.
class and all that.
And sometimes they are because they aren't doing anything responsible. But what I've noticed is that a lot of them are naturally intelligent. Like they do really well in the SATs and stuff if they are at least willing to get through it. And they don't even like study and everything. And then they end up being bullies who are, they don't take any responsibility either. So they can often use their intelligence to devise wicked plans instead of using their intelligence that God gave them for good things. The next thing here, their feet are swift and running to evil. The person that I talked to yesterday mentioned about how it was just like a bullying case almost every day. It's like every time this bullying that happened, it was that this bully was quick in running to evil. Like that's what they were using their energy for, was evil. Yeah. Well, so number 6 is this one right here, a false witness who speaks lies. This is something that I found very common about bullies, is that they like to blame shift. Is when they actually do something wrong and they know they've done something wrong, and then you point it out, what often will happen is they'll try to basically say, well, so-and-so did this. Or if they're stuck in their pride, they will often, here's what's really bizarre too, is that, and I've said this before, is that whatever that person hates the most is usually what that person commits themselves. Usually if they really hate arrogance, it's coming from an arrogant person. I'm serious. Like this is what often happens with bullies. People who are who try to put pressure on other people are usually the same people who are complaining about the pressure that you're putting against them when you're trying to stand up to them. Usually they try to find ways to, if you will, false witness, to speak lies. And that's what often happens, unfortunately. Sometimes they bend the truth a little bit too to get out of some responsibility, some kind of trouble. So that's something that happens there. And then the final one here is one who sows discord among brethren, which, as we were talking about, basically means somebody who causes divisions. And boy, that's true. That is very true. Sometimes, but you have ones who are very specifically bullies, though. And I've noticed whenever, like at school, whenever they're teaching there at RVCS, whenever there was that bully was absent, the whole class was so much better. There wasn't like that feeling of angst or anything like that, because those bullies are ones who really they create discord. They're ones who do that. There's this almost like this desire that they have to see people even like break up relationships and things like that. And it's certainly something that is all stemming from, it's wicked, it's evil, it's wrong. But what do you do about it? And that's the great question. And does God even care about those who are bullied? And the answer is yes, he does. Jesus said here in Luke, in the earlier passage that we were reading, he says, go and do likewise. Why? Because this is something that's important to God, that if somebody is mistreated, somebody has an injustice against them, that you actually do something. And so God cares about those who are bullied so much that he told us to show the love of Christ to the hurting. So that's important to know. It causes a lot of pain on other people for sure. There's this video here that Burger King actually put together. So let me go ahead and this is a really interesting video. So people are calling names all the time, like fear, slander, and everything like that.
It's been hard for me to stand up for other people because I feel like I'm already a target. It's just easier to do nothing.
It's an interesting social experiment I did.
Stop mine, dude. Ow, stop mine. Ow. Do you have any friends? Yes, I do. You. What are you even doing here? I want to. I get it. You think you're special? Welcome on Virginia meal.
Yeah, they are bullying Whoppers, and they're seeing how many people respond to the bullying of a Whopper instead of a kid.
Bullied or unbullied? Yeah. Do you manager that I can speak to? Because I was given this. Did you bully this person? That's what Robert G. I can't defend himself. I don't mean anything by it. It's just a legislative action. Is there something wrong with you? Yeah, be serious. Had you seen the boys program? You have stood up and said something. Yeah.
Are you okay? Yeah, okay.
Not every situation. Not every situation.
What's your name? Iris.
We're just having fun.
Therefore, I think that's the big fault.
Yeah. So basically, we're running out of time. It was a really interesting social experiment that almost everybody said something about a burger that was messed up, that was being taken advantage of. But only was 12% responded to a kid that was being taken advantage of. And like open daily, it wasn't just like they were just like kidding around with this kid. They were like actually pushing him. They took a water thing and they poured it over his food. it was a really interesting social experiment that they put together. Yes, but
Well, because they were trying to see, okay, if they would react
Yeah.
to something happening right in front of them,
right, because
or something that they would have the effects of later.
it didn't act, yeah, it wasn't towards them individually
Yes.
with the kid being bullied, but it was towards them when they had a $4 burger that was messed up.
Which is stupid.
So we're bringing this out here because a lot of times if you see something, we don't do anything. And that's what we're trying to get us to encourage to think about differently. So how should we respond to those who have been bullied, for example? In Luke, it says that the Good Samaritans saw the man. And it's not just that you just see what happened, that you actually see the person, that you show compassion on them. That's important to consider first of all. If you see it, then you should also do something if you can help them in some way. The other thing is to care for them. The Good Samaritan used a lot of his own money to actually care for this person. You also get into, as we were talking about meeting the immediate needs, that's what this Good Samaritan was doing. Now, if somebody was being like bullied at school, for example, there are immediate needs that you can try to help them with. Like say somebody grabbed their backpack and they like shook all their books out of their backpacks and they're all on the floor there just laughing at them and they walk away. Well, one obvious thing that you can do to them is just simply help pick their books up and see them and know that you're not just blind to them. And then you should actually say something to people who are in authority, because if you just leave it going all the time, then you should say something. It's not going to get any better. Those are important. But also considering how you can show friendship to them in the future as well. And then responding to the bullies yourself. This is not easy. Jesus himself talks about how sometimes you are attacked for doing good. I wish we had more time on this one here. But like the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus talks about how if somebody smites you on the cheek, then turn the other cheek, right? There is that element of suffering for the name of Christ. But Jesus didn't always respond to bullies, if you will, in that way. There's wisdom that you have to choose on that. Sometimes Jesus responds to bullies and taking a whip out seriously and getting all the money changers out of the temple. So sometimes he was very hard on people, and sometimes he himself took the heat. And I think some of that has to do with, are you suffering for the name of Christ, or are you standing up for injustice? And those are the two things. If you are standing up for somebody who is doing something that's evil against other people and you, then you have to be hard with them. Even if it means that you yourself might get attacked. The Good Samaritan could have been attacked himself. It's not normal for a Samaritan to go through Jericho that way. So Jesus, of course, loved those who persecuted him. He said, Father, do not hold their sins against them. I forgive them, for they know not what they do. But at the same time, he also was tough with some people, right? So he says in Luke 6 to bless them and that curse you, right? Pray for those that despitefully use you and persecute you, and then do good to them. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes doing good to somebody is indeed telling your principal or telling somebody in authority that something happens, or talking to a supervisor if it's at a workplace, or talking with certainly a parent, or whatever the case might be. Bullying is not a kind thing, but it's important to remember that God himself loves the bullied, and he also loves the bullied too. So God is somebody who wants all people to come to know him, to find salvation, including the bullies. God does not delight in seeing the bullies perish, right? God wants bullies to have their lives turned over to him. So there's a way that you can respond in a Christ-like manner. So certainly you need to pray for them. If you're dealing with a bully situation right now, you should pray for the bullies. You should show kindness to them, but not in a passive way, and that you're just a pushover and like you don't actually care about justice being done. Certainly, if you see something, then say something or do something, and certainly get other people involved. And it shouldn't be that something you bear on your alone, especially if it's cyberbullying. You should certainly seek out help from a parent or an adult for cyberbullying. But anyways, there's a lot more you could go into. I think we've got to get a rolling here for now. But if you have any other thoughts, let me know, or any questions. But have a great day. Hopefully that was a helpful study for you guys today. We'll see you. Abby, thanks for joining us.
What grade are you in? Seven. Seven, okay. Seven, Laura. My husband and her husband, and kids. Okay, and my friend Eden, she's a girl that watches.
Okay.
I keep eating and gave out of trouble.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, you're really helpful, huh? Well, he does. Oh, yeah.
Hey, yeah, Cindy. I have choir practice. So I'm gonna be over here for Parsons being out there.
You can have say, start the service with this intern. One, one,
Alrighty, Carson. That was from last. Thank you about it. Yeah, buddy. Not okay. We did that last week. That was a special service we had last week. But we don't have that every single night. Every single Sunday night. That was just a special time last week.